Thank you to all of you. I'm sure each one of you has a unique story to share with us and our viewers. Shakti, let me begin the program with you. What is it that inspired you to become a civil servant?
If I talk about how it all started, so it comes from my father. He's a public servant. He's into UP police. He was initially a constable, but now head constable there. So it all started from there. So it was a dream which was seen in childhood, but obviously for obvious reason neglected, because at that time I thought it is not possible for me to go for it. But while my masters, and that time when I got an opportunity to go for dissertation work, that is basically a research setup that has been provided to us, that was the time I realized, though everybody is contributing to the nation, but then that research is a very specific field. And I started researching about UPSC, and from there I came to know about the diverse opportunities that it serves. There are so many sectors where I can not just contribute but actually create a mark. So that's how I planned that this is something I'm going to try, because very limited number of attempts have been provided. There is a limited age till when we can appear. I thought till when I have that, I'll give my best and go for that.
Okay, Harshita, what's your story? Because I was reading about you and I saw that you have a Bachelor of Commerce degree, then you did your post-graduation in Chartered Accountancy. So how and when did you decide to pursue a career in civil services, and for which then you chose political science and international relations as your optional subject?
Yes, ma'am. So it all started after I cleared my chartered accountancy. So initially, since the childhood days, I had this notion that I want to do something for the women's section and the children which are living in the slum areas. But I did not know that civil services would be that platform. After I completed my chartered accountancy, it was my father who guided me to do this, and it was also my mother's dream. She's not here with me today. I lost her 10 years ago. However, her blessings have always been with me, and that is what motivated me to give civil services a try. And with regards to PSIR, political science as my optional, it was because of two reasons. One, because I was reading commerce since I was in 11th standard. So civil services provided me with that opportunity to learn something out of my background, out of my field. So that is why I tried exploring new optionals. And also because PSIR has an advantage that it has a lot of overlapping with our GS subjects. And it also helps us in the interview stage. Right. That is why I chose PSIR as the optional.
Your mother would be very proud of you, Harshita. We all are, given the stage that you are in now and you're going to serve the country in the times to come. Zinia, your parents are both bureaucrats. So was it a childhood dream that you grew up with, or gradually you decided that this is something that you wanted to do? And I'm asking you this because I went through your profile on LinkedIn, and you have an organization, an NGO called PSEX. So how did the transition happen? You set up an organization which is an NGO, but then you carried that social development aspect now into your new journey.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. I think it is a parental nudge that started perhaps as soon as I was born. Okay. And that guidance, having gone through the practicality of the entire journey of the past 23 years of my life, looking at them do so much work across Haryana and across India from my father's end. I think, as I said, it has been a parental nudge of sorts. But when I entered college, I think St. Stephen's provided me that avenue to go through that illustrious list of alumni. Even then, I just wanted to ensure that I have that diversity aspect insofar as experience goes, which is why I co-founded an organization, as you mentioned, PSEX, with a few of my friends. Social development, especially in times of COVID, was something that we found we could contribute to apart from what we were doing on the side, and that is how the organization came to be. And having also worked in the corporate sector, I decidedly went at the civil services because I think the best contribution of my humble skill set and the passion that I hold for the social development and public service delivery would better coalesce in the civil services itself. And I think that is how I would describe the journey from PSEX, my parents, to today finally reaching here.
But there's lots that you need to do ahead in terms of the transformational stage that the country is in, and we really need young visionaries like you to contribute to that growth. So that's something that I'll come to in due course of the program. But coming first to the strategies that all of you adapted to in terms of your preparations and ultimately cracking the exam, that's something that all the aspirants would love to hear from you. So starting with you, Shakti, again, what study methods or strategies did you find most effective during your preparation?
In these 4 or 5 years, I think I have a list of more don'ts than do's, because I have experimented a lot. So from that I did realize certain things that I'd like to mention on my points. The first is that be very thorough with the syllabus. If you are getting very confused while entering into the stream, you might get lost in the vastness of UPSC. Okay? Second thing is, be very thorough with the previous year question, because if syllabus is telling you what is to be read, pre-YQ will tell you how much is to be read. Okay? You have to just go that way. Then comes the thirds, that is basics have to be strong. You don't need to just keep running back of those advanced book list for that. You need to have your basics, that is your NCERT is very strong. Very limited number of books, because that is what basically led to my failure in third attempt, because history was my phobia. I had phobia with history. I was so much scared of it, and because of that I read I think 10 books alone on ancient India, from new NCERT to old NCERT to so many reference books. So I think having a very limited number of books so that you can revise it multiple number of times is more important, because I think retaining the information is what is required in case of UPSC. So these are 3-4 things that I can now, when I look back, I can realize that these were the things that helped me, go through back to back in 2 attempts. That is in my 4th and my 5th attempt.
Okay, Xenia, what is your template that you followed, and which of course has yielded positive results? The aspirants can perhaps take a leaf or two out of your preparation strategy?
I think the one cornerstone of my preparation was religiosity. In the sense that I'm a very competitive person. So while I would go at mocks, while I would, whenever the toppers list would come out, I would try to look for my friends in them, and then I would try to, inch above them, not in a competitive spirit it's per se, but more in terms of ensuring that I'm able to edge forward. Going through again, as Shakti already mentioned, retention is very important, yes, and that only comes through revision. So continuous iterations of going through the same books again and again, whilst it might be boring, but again keeping that motivation in mind, you have to do the boring things to finally inch towards fruition of your goals. Apart from that, I think having a routine really helps. So after leaving my job, I realized that I had become very used to a certain kind of lifestyle, and it was very difficult to sit on the desk again and again and sit continuously for 8-9 hours. I'm sure almost everybody feels that way. So what I did was, in front of me I kept one motivation, whatever it is that strikes the fancy of everybody, whether it's their parents, whether it's seeing their name, whether it's just success of having those 3 letters next to you, or service for the nation, etc. That and the Labasna quote that all of us know was written right next to it. And the third thing that I wrote was something that it's taking a bit of time, but Billy Mills, he was an Olympian. So in the last 10 seconds of that race, I think it was in 1967 Olympics, he was running at the 4th or 5th place. And within those 10 seconds, he decided he needs to inch forward, and just with that determination, he went ahead, and within those 10 seconds, he won the Olympic gold. So in the main stage, when I was feeling very low because I wasn't sure whether I was going to clear the prelims, and then again when the mains result was about to come, again getting yourself to sit for the next attempt, I had these 3 things in front of me, and I think these were the 3 driving forces, apart from my mom's continuous encouragement that you can do it, you can do it. She had that back right behind me. So I think having those constant sources and having your determination and motivations very clearly laid out before you every single morning when you're waking up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. whatever it is, I think that really makes a difference. So
okay, so they've shared their perspectives, Harshita. My question to you now has 2 parts. One is on the challenges, which Shakti touched upon, the vastness of the syllabus. So what is it that you did to ensure that you have a direction and a focus, and you are studying smart, because it's not always hard work, it's also the smart work which helps you clear the civil services examination. And the second aspect is about what kept you motivated, because while you're preparing and while you're going through it, there are lots of distractions, and in this digital age, many I can't even name. So how did you keep away from those distractions, and how did you keep yourself motivated?
See, to answer the first part of your question, regarding the challenges, as Shakti rightly mentioned, that there are a lot of resources and books available. So what aspirants do is, because of that FOMO that the current generation is feeling, we start to look around and follow multiple resources, whatever comes in front of us, and it creates a confusion in our minds. So what I did instead was, apart from following a limited set of books, I also focused on brainstorming. So I had a small group of friends with whom I would discuss the topics and the current events which were going on. So they helped me in getting clarity and the conceptual knowledge which is required for attaining success. Apart from that, CSAT cannot be neglected, because that was my biggest hurdle, as I couldn't clear prelims in the first 2 attempts. So CSAT was a major hurdle. Because of that, so I started focusing on the PYQs for CSAT and the GS papers as well. PYQs help a lot. And the third thing is that you need to have a little flexibility in your schedule. A schedule is important, but if we start following a rigid schedule of 12 hours and we map every hour that we are supposed to do this in the first 3 hours, and then so it creates rigidity, and because of that the so-called backlog that we say, it starts to overburden an aspirant, and then it gets to the saturation point. So we need to have some kind of a provision that we say in accountancy terms, that to adjust the time for which we can also have time for our hobbies as well, because they are also important. Meditation and physical activity, all these things are necessary to keep us motivated, because UPSC is a long journey.
Okay, Shakti, because this leads me to a question on the dilemma which a lot of young aspirants face. So when they're starting out on their UPSC journey, what is more beneficial? More time for self-study, or a direction which perhaps the coaching centers provide? Which one would you say is more beneficial?
When I say direction, I won't link it to anybody. It can be an institution, it can be a mentor, it can be your parents, it can be anybody. Like direction ke liye you don't need to like go for a proper coaching. But I say that direction is more important, because I think what is to be done everybody knows. We know basics hai, you have your NCRTs, you have previous year question, but then how it is that, how you have to do that? Like previous year question, are we going to solve it? Are we going to analyze it? Will we focus on keywords? Will we focus on the themes? So these are so many factors that come into play when you are going through all of that. So I think having a proper direction is really very important. That can come from anywhere. And then comes self-study, no matter whichever coaching you enroll into. Let that be one of the most prestigious one. Let that be one of the more taking rankers are coming from there. But until you put in that hours in that, you will never be able to move ahead, because UPSC requires self-study. Okay, by an example, we know the functioning of the Indian Parliament. Everybody knows, but then to understand those basic things, those small things, you will have different way to understand that, different way to memorize that. I may know the role of speaker in a different way, somebody else will get through it in a different way, so that is something I tell you, that khud ka efforts, those self-study is more important than anybody else coming and teaching you here.
Okay, Harshita, what's your take on self-study versus, I wouldn't say versus, but what according to you is more effective? And direction, when Shakti says it can be anything, because and I ask you this because you go to any city today and you will see mushrooming of so many coaching centers, and they are, telling the youngsters to enroll because they're going to provide you, and they sell you the dream.
Yes.
And a lot of youngsters do fall for that dream, and when they're not able to achieve it, or when they're not able to make that cut, not everyone has that kind of determination or the resilience to come back stronger each time. So what has your experience been now that you've crossed the line, you're on the other side, and you can tell somebody who still has to make the cut to do this is the right procedure, this is what I did, and perhaps this is more beneficial?
I would like to agree with Shakti. Direction is very important, as it keeps you focused on a particular path which you are required to follow. And I would like to burst this myth that one needs to come to Delhi to prepare for UPSC or for civil services, because I never came to Delhi for preparation. I studied from Gujarat itself, and the state governments are taking a lot of efforts in order to motivate the students to come up. As in my case, the government of Gujarat played a very proactive role. I was associated with SPIPA, which is an autonomous institute under the government of Gujarat, wherein after cracking its entrance exam on the lines of prelims, I got associated with that and did my preparation from there itself. So it was kind of a mini Delhi ecosystem which I got in Gujarat itself. So after following a direction, as you mentioned, that resilience and determination is also necessary, as if you know the path, but you are the one who has to walk on that path. And to do that, you need to have a clear vision as to why you wanted to do civil services in the first place. That is what will keep you motivated. And you also need to remember that why you are doing this, it is because you are doing this for your parents. You need to remember their faces. You are not doing it for yourself. Once you will become a civil servant, you will not only have a prestigious career, but you will also have that respect for your family. Your family will be remembered by your name. So it is a very proud moment for each and every student.
Zinia, a lot of aspirants say that interview is the toughest part because a lot of the candidates who make the cut, at least till the mains, they're not able to get through the interview. How did you approach the interview? And I ask you this because there's a lot of, you're overwhelmed by a lot of emotions, there's a lot of pressure. At the same time, huge expectations from everybody who knows that you are there for that interview. So how did you balance out between this emotional journey, but at the same time you were sure that you had to meet the expectations and you had to come out positively from that interview?
I think the interview stage before I started the civil services in general seemed to be the toughest thing, the easiest thing to me, but when I knew that I had cleared mains, it started to feel like a very large mountain for some reason. And whilst I was filling my DAF, the technicalities that go into it, again that expectations part started coming in. The three things I think that really helped me sail through the interview, and thankfully with good numbers to get me a good rank, were firstly I had a very large resource in terms of book knowledge, which is to say that I've been an avid reader since my school time, and I had the opportunity to go back to my bookshelf, go through each one of them because I never really took down any notes, and then just taking out those 2-3 concepts or any learnings that I would write down at the back of the book. That was the first thing. The second thing was knowing my DAF very, very well. In one of the first few mock interviews, I realized that my understanding of my own self was very less. And I think the interview provides you that avenue to learn about yourself. It's not just about getting marks, but I learned so much about Delhi. I learned so much about my parental lineage, my surname, my first name, about flowers, about all kinds of things, auroras, sprites, etc. So you get to know yourself. I did not know that Delhi was a smart city, even though I've lived here since 2006. So you just get to know yourself, your background, the people around you, and everything that you're learning in terms of the nation, in terms of international relations, etc. So it really makes you a very aware aspirant, and also really just funnels all the knowledge you've gained across all stages into one. And the final thing was that the people sitting in front of you have done what you aspire to do, and even if you're able to get that 1% insight within that interview, because I remember all the members, while I answered their questions to the best of my ability, they really enriched me with their own insights on topics that they have already worked in. So I think you should take it as a learning experience, and that really brings in that conversational candor whilst also you enriching yourself. So keeping all of those positives and negatives in mind, I think it all boils down to mindset.
Okay, Shakti, you said you have a list of don'ts because you have so many years of experience now, and which is taught you. What is it that you can tell the aspirants to not do when they're approaching the interview per se, because that is said to be the toughest part of the civil services examination?
Talking about interview, I think first the difference between other stages and interview is you're sitting face to face with them.
Yes.
So you cannot try and hide in certain facts. Everything that you say will go on with that emotion on your face, which they can clearly see. So first thing, people say that even if you don't have a hobby, just write it, we'll just develop interest on that. Let's read out on that. That is something you should never do, I'll tell you. And okay, so I was one of them. In my last attempt, I wrote, because there was nothing in my sports section, I was not very active into sports, so I went along with maybe badminton. I played casually, like just at my home, so I thought maybe let me go with that, and I did it. And that's when I realized in my last attempt that I had to work so much on that because I do not have any technical knowledge about it. So that is what I think corrected in this year. I went on with all those truth and facts, so don't bluff in the DAF, first thing. Second thing is, do not ignore your DAF. People are like thinking that we need to go more for current affairs, more for opinion based things, and just ignore your DAF. Do not do that. Your DAF and current affairs have to be equally balanced. And then third thing is, like, go positively. You have already crossed the mains. You're already in the last, that step. That one positive, that approach towards every questions can change a lot of perspective also. Because last year I had so many expectations because it was first time me going to the interview, and I was that with all those burden that I am going to do that, I have to do it. And I remember being very mechanical there. Be natural. This year I have already faced a failure once. I knew that okay, failure is also an option. which I did not take into consideration into the last attempt. So I went along with that. Whatever goes with truth, whatever goes with, my personality goes there. Let that be a very candid and a very true conversation. By candid, I do not mean to go very casual. You have to be respectful, but you need to be very natural as well. So I think these are certain things.
Harshita, how did you approach the interview? Because I agree with Shakti that it's the last stage, you have to be your own self, but at the same time, it also hurts when you're unable to cross that stage. And a lot of people who have several times appeared for the interview but have not been able to make it to the list, for them it will be very hurtful, because you prepare well, you try to be as natural and as best you can. You every year, I'm sure they would be hearing the toppers, but you realize that you're not among those lucky ones. So what was your strategy? What are the kind of emotions that you were going through when you were going inside for that interview?
As it was my first interview, I was very nervous. I had those jitters that how will I perform in front of such an experienced panel worth 130 years of experience, if we count 25 to 30 years each. So I was very nervous, and but what I reminded myself was that appearing for the interview itself is a blessing, because so many of us only dream of sitting in front of the UPSC board and giving the interview. Even entering the UPSC Bhavan was itself like a dream come true. So it was a very surreal feeling. And for my strategy with respect to the interview, I used technology to the best of its advantage. I must say, ChatGPT was like my best friend in the interview preparation. So what I used to do is, I opened the ChatGPT, and whatever the sections in my DAF related to my background or my state, whatever they were, what I used to do is, I just put an input in ChatGPT that please provide a list of questions which can be asked regarding so and so aspect in an UPSC interview. And I used to play with the words comprehensive questions or anything like that. And then a list of questions would come, 20 to 25 questions, and then I would ask answers from ChatGPT itself.
That's the transformation I was talking about, that when you use technology as an assistant, it can be a great enabler. Zinia, that brings me to the next question. And earlier on, I mentioned about the transformational stage that India currently is in. And we need to realize that vision of Viksit Bharat 2047. Your parents are civil servants. We often keep talking about how for a country like India, the civil servants are the backbone, because they're the ones shaping policies and they're the ones who are bringing about this kind of transformation that we're talking about. But what's also important to acknowledge is, and you must have heard the Prime Minister often talk about, how whoever joins the services now will have a more critical role to play, because what the policies that you shape will shape the future course of our country, say 100 years down the line. So how do you see yourself as a young now civil servant contributing to that transformation that India is in, and driving, perhaps accelerating that transformation to the next level?
I think in terms of the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister, it's very important for the civil servants themselves to take the baton first and then deliver it to the public. With the introduction of Mission Karma Yogi, for example, which has been introduced, taking that ahead, and in addition to that, each ministry, there are a lot of initiatives that every ministry has started taking up in terms of not just artificial intelligence, but the big jump that we're trying to make on the quantum arena, or supercomputers, etc. I think the young generation needs to realize, the very first pedestal of realization needs to be that technology has two sides, and the positive side needs to be capitalized on more than the negative side. So when you look at YouTube, for example, there are one kind of person would use it in terms of edu-tech, the other might be using it in a different way. So the very first, I think, preferential move forward needs to be in terms of dissemination to the last mile, because technology really enables that. So when you look at, for example, the Digi Bharti mission that is being taken forward in rural areas, so ensuring that dissemination of technology happens to the last level, and thereafter the delivery of all kinds of missions, all kinds of goals that have been set for 2047 for realization of the demographic dividend. I think in those manners, and most importantly when it comes to skill development, that is where youth really can move forward. And vocationalization, or not just in terms of that, also in terms of just being on an edge forward. So I think the Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal sir very recently had mentioned the startup culture and the need for taking it forward in the technological arena, because technology is the next smart power arena that we need to really target. So I think keeping all of those perspectives in mind, even the civil services aspirants can really help in this, because you're reading so much about it, might as well do just one course on the side. I tried my level best to do that, couldn't do it, but just doing that one course on the side, having a side gig going, and also helping the country reach that avenue, because on the international level, technology and India coming together with such a large population can really turn our demographic dividend into a technological dividend. So I think we really have that baton now, and we'll try our level best to take it forward.
We're so glad the baton is now in hands of young people like you, who have a clear vision and who will be transforming our lives. Harshita, what is the area of public service that you are passionate about? You've achieved this goal now, you're a civil servant and you have that vision to transform people's lives. So what are some of the areas that you are more passionate about, if you could share with our viewers?
Firstly, I would like to focus on the women's upliftment, as women don't realize the power they have. So I would like to be that bridge by making them realize that how much power they hold, and even their little small contribution can shape the growth story of our nation to an upward trajectory. So women upliftment is one thing. Apart from that, education. With a specific focus on the children which are living in the slums, as they are not even, they don't even have the access to the basic necessities and education. So I would like to focus on educating them, because they are our future youth. So we need to empower them apart from the skill development of their parents, so that they can live a dignified life. And this is the way in which I would like to contribute to our Honorable Prime Minister's vision of Viksit Bharat.
Shakti, your hard work paid off, and you're now living your dream. You wanted to be a civil servant. What is the next chapter that you're particularly excited about, and especially in terms of contributing to changing the face of India?
If we talk about the civil services, till now we just know about the theoretical rules, because we were just reading about it. It's yet to be seen about the practical realities, that how are we going to progress. Talking about arenas, I just like a quote which I read, which says, it's easier to build stronger children than to repair broken men. So I think, building those strong foundation for India, focusing on children. And I think government has done a lot. Where we are lagging is the implementation part. So that ensuring that whatever is being done at the top level, that goes down and it is easily and properly implemented at the grassroots level. Be it children's, be it women, you have to take the entire community together. So it is something that I basically focus, that government has done a lot. Let's get it implemented, even at the lowest or at the grassroots level. So that would be one way to approach.
All right, so that having been said, we'll have to wind up the conversation, as much as we would love this conversation to continue, because there are so many aspects that we would still like to speak to all three of you about to inspire the civil service aspirants. But time has run out and we'll have to wrap up this conversation. So once again, thank you to all three of you, Shakti, Harshita, Zinia, for taking out time, joining us in the studio today and having this free-flowing conversation and inspiring millions of other aspirants who are watching us on the other side. So once again, thank you very much for your inspiring words. And at the same time, let me reiterate that we're extremely proud of what you've achieved, and may you continue to contribute to the growth and prosperity of this country. So wish you all very well for your future in the civil services. And thank you once again. Thank you to you viewers as well for your time.